as we all know by now, that day before yesterday, today is May the 1st, so it was, I guess, April 29th, when word got out that Israel had targeted a couple of bases, Iranian bases in Syria, and one of them, one of the strikes hit 200 surface-to-surface missiles that Iran was planning on sending to Hezbollah. And then the next day, which was yesterday, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, releases a report archived in CDs, DVDs, and books that the Mossad had carefully extracted from the Iranians, unbeknownst to the Iranians, about the Iranian secret nuclear plans for Israel. And of course, hopefully everyone has listened to Prime Minister Netanyahu speak on this. The story is that a copy of the archived materials, the catalog material from the Mossad, has been sent over to the United States. And the United States government has examined it, and everything they have looked at so far proved to be authentic. The Europeans knew this. Everyone who entered into the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action knew this. Which means everyone who signed on to it is culpable of its final of what may lead what the final outcome of it may lead to. And of course, the final outcome would have led to the eventually leading to the nuclearization of Iran. Everyone knew this. So, let's see here. So even before, we have in certain headlines on the Jerusalem Post this morning, Israel to send their professional teams to Europe to discuss Iran intel. It doesn't matter. They already know. And so we can look in Debka file, and they have a article this morning, Europeans unmoved by Netanyahu's Iran revelations. In response to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's release of Iran's atomic archive, the French ambassador to Washington, Gerard Arad, said that information about past Iranian nuclear activity was in fact an argument in favor of the nuclear deal, not against it. Wow, these guys are really, they're pushing hard against Israel on this. There's a reason for it. A German government spokesman said it was vital to keep the independent inspections provided for under the deal. Well, he obviously didn't listen to the Prime Minister. A British government spokesman defended the 2015 accord, saying, "We have never been naive about Iran and its nuclear intentions." What the British government spokesman did is essentially saying that the British are partly responsible for the final outcome of this fiasco. In effect, incriminating themselves. So now we have the French and the British defending this deal with the devil, so to speak. Devil means adversary, or yes, means adversary. Okay. And he says that is why the IAEA inspection regime had to be extensive and robust. My question is, where are the IAEA inspectors? Well, you see the deceit here. And then we have this. On the Daily Caller. The Daily Caller has an article from yesterday. Deputy Foreign Minister threatens Iran's withdrawal from nuclear deal. But when you get into the fine details of these tweets from this guy, it's not exactly the way the title would have you understand it. Let's get to it here in just a second. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi appeared to signal Monday the country's imminent withdrawal from the nuclear deal negotiated by the Obama administration in 2015. The Iran nuclear deal is no longer sustainable for Iran in its present form, without regard to a U.S. exit. Did you hear that? Let's read it again. The Iran nuclear deal is no longer sustainable for Iran in its present form without regard to a U.S. exit. What this means is, at this point in time, even if whether or not the U.S. would stay in the agreement, that it is no longer sustainable. Well, it never was sustainable, you see. What Israel did was blew the sheep's clothing off the wolf, you see. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was sheep's clothing to cover the wolf. And what Israel did, what the Mossad did, was work very hard at their own peril to uncover the wolf, to remove the sheep's clothing from the wolf. And now the sheep's clothing has been completely removed from the wolf, and the wolf is exposed. So, the wolf says, Iran nuclear deal is no longer sustainable for Iran in its present form without regard to a U.S. exit. Quoting the ISNA news agency. Now, of course, you must understand that once the sheep's clothing is blown off the wolf, bloodshed begins, I'm sure. You understand the story of Little Red Riding Hood? Oh, yes, I'm sure that you've been told that, well, taught that story when you were young. Some versions of it. Well, the story had the wolf dressed like grandma, but you understand. You understand that eventually the hunter had to come and shoot the wolf. And folks, you must realize that once the sheep's clothing is thrown off the wolf will have to be shot. Because the wolf will do what the wolf normally does when he doesn't have sheep's clothing on. But see, there is a problem here. There is a very, very, very big problem here. We have the Europeans insisting that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action must be still adhered to by the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Russia, etc. And all of the information in this expose by the Mossad, they claim, are even more reason to keep the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action intact. But Benjamin Netanyahu's expose yesterday proved that to be an error. So why are these people insisting on sticking with it, sticking with that plan? Don't forget the $1.7 billion that was loaded up on pallets. The 1.7 billion euros, cold hard currency loaded up on pallets by the State Department, by the Obama State Department, and flown into Tehran in return for hostage, or to pay for hostage release. The only reason why these leaders, well, one thing that I noticed is that when Emmanuel Macron came to the United States to speak to President Trump, how do I put this? He seemed, I'm not saying he seemed to take the side of Trump. He didn't. But there seemed to be a connection between him and Donald Trump. And then afterwards he said that he doesn't think that Donald Trump is going to remain in the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And then what did he do? He went straight home, or he went straight into the arms of the British Prime Minister Theresa May and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And they all together in one accord said that they're going to stick with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. There is no plan B. There is no other alternative. So the question that I have is, how much money did they offer him? Oh, that's a accusatory thing to say, Henry, isn't it? Why do you think politicians vie for public office to begin with? Do you think it's actually for public service? Seriously, folks? No. No, it's for self-service. It is for feeding themselves. It is for self-enrichment. How do you explain politicians entering into public office, not having any more than 5 zeros in their bank accounts, and when they leave, several more zeros are added? How does that happen? You know you know how little they get paid. Of course, they get a nice health care plan like nobody else does. But that's not my point. My point is you should see the balance of their bank accounts once they retire. The Clintons, they entered politics with hardly anything, and their net worth is, let me look this up. As of October 2017, Hillary Clinton's net worth stood at $45 million. Huh? That's just Hillary Clinton. Bankrate has Bill Clinton's net worth to be now $80 million. These people were lifelong politicians. When they entered into politics, they didn't have anything. This is the reason why people enter into politics, to enrich themselves. It is no different in Germany, France, or Great Britain. And when you see 1.7 billion euros worth of cold hard cash going from the United States State Department to Tehran to pay for hostages, you know that that money is going to be used for some nefarious things, and that politicians are going to want to get some of that money back. And of course, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was a reward, or I should say, maybe I suspect that there was a quid pro quo thing going on here with the $1.7 billion and the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And so when we have the Europeans saying, "Oh no, we're going to stick with this no matter what," and what Benjamin Netanyahu pointed out in his statement yesterday is proof that we need to stick with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. What that means is, in spite of all of the evidence of Iran, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is based on deceit. The Europeans don't care. And the reason why they don't care, it's always about money. The love for money is the root of every kind of evil, says Paul, says the Apostle Paul, the only apostle to the Gentiles. So the Apostle Paul is the apostle to the Europeans. And the Apostle Paul's own quote casts a tone of conviction upon the Europeans. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, while after Benjamin Netanyahu exposed Iran, exposed the wolf, threw the sheep's clothing off, the European leaders are going to stick with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action anyway, but now Iran says no. Why? What's the point of continuing to give these European leaders their bribe money if Iran's already been exposed? Now, you must understand that during the American election, when Donald Trump got elected, that all the European the European big shot countries had been working to undermine the election of Donald Trump. Barack Obama was working to undermine the election of Donald Trump. The proof is already out there exposed for everyone to see. And it's not surprising that President Donald Trump wants to get even with these people by scuttling the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. He knows that a quid pro quo was going on here. He knows this. And I'm sure that he wants the payments to these crooked European leaders to end prematurely. And thus, you will see the Europeans become very angry with Israel. In fact, let's go back to what Angela Merkel told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in January in Davos, Switzerland. Before I go there, I want to do this first. Go to this particular article on NPR. In Davos, Merkel warns against poison of right-wing populism. After missing the event for 2 years, German Chancellor Angela Merkel addressed the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on Wednesday, delivering a defense of globalism and a rebuke of isolationist tendencies that have emerged in Europe and Washington. It marked her return to the world stage following months of political uncertainty at home, where she is still trying to stitch together a new government after her party's weak showing in the elections last fall. Merkel made a plea for multilateral solutions to global challenges. Isolation is not the answer, she emphasized in her speech, sending a message against President Trump's America First politics. Although Merkel never mentioned Donald Trump by name, his presence in her speech was constant and unmistakable. And, of course, this proves my point that the European hotshots were trying to undermine Donald Trump before the election. Now, what else did Angela Merkel do here? Well, this is on Hamodia, the daily newspaper of Torah Jewry. Merkel warns Netanyahu of war if Iran deal fails. In Jerusalem, that's the real name of Jerusalem, folks, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has reportedly warned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that if the United States withdraws from the nuclear deal, it could set off a chain reaction plunging the Middle East into war. Merkel spoke with Netanyahu at the World Economic Conference in Davos last January, where she also cautioned that an American exit would also create a schism in the Western alliance, with the U.S. and Israel on one side versus Germany, France, and the UK, along with Russia, China, and Iran, according to a report on Tuesday on Israel's Channel 10. Do you want that to happen? The German leader was quoted as asking Netanyahu, who also urged U.S. President Donald Trump to fix or nix the agreement with Iran. I've talked about this before. This is the German Chancellor Angela Merkel threatening Israel, but also threatening the United States. That a Middle East war is going to come, and the United States and Israel will be on one side, and Germany, France, Great Britain, China, Russia, and Iran will be on the other side. This is what she was saying. Why? Why? Money. Money, folks, it's always about money. If you don't believe it, you go to Ezekiel 38, and the Ezekiel 38 war is about cattle, goods, and a great spoil. That's what it's about. That's what it's always about. To get rich. They use the power of politics to enrich themselves. So now I think it is time to go back to the Bible. A dark day is coming. That's what some people call World War III. A very dark day is coming. I'm trying to remember which chapter in Ezekiel this is. I think it might be all right, it's Ezekiel 34. Now, this Ezekiel 34 is a prophecy against Israel's shepherds. But let's apply this to whom it is applied to, shall we? In other words, if the shoe fits, wear it. Let's first of all understand that in 70 AD, that all of Jewry was dispersed to all the nations of the world. So, at that point in time, all the nations, the Gentiles, became the caretakers of the Jews. You understand what I'm talking about here? With that in mind, let us read Ezekiel 34. Verse 1, And the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel, prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith Jehovah Elohim, unto the shepherds, woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Listen very carefully. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? You eat the fat, you clothe yourselves with the wool. You clothe yourselves with the wool. You kill them that are fattened up good, so you can eat them for yourself. But you feed not the flock. The disease have you not strengthened, neither have you healed that which was sick, neither have you bound up that which was broken, neither have you brought again. What do you mean brought again? Brought back to the homeland. Neither have you brought them back to the homeland, that which was driven away. Europe, you did not bring. In fact, remember, Great Britain, it was you who stood in the crossway when the Jews were trying to escape Nazi Europe. You stood in the crossway. Neither have you sought that which was lost. In fact, Europe participated in a gathering up the orphans and Christianizing them and causing them to lose their identity. And I suspect that this was done to my forefathers. I have reason to believe this. But with force and with cruelty you have ruled them. Uh-oh. That sounds like you, Rome. That sounds like you, Great Britain. That sounds like you, France. That sounds like you, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany. With force and with cruelty you have ruled them. And they were scattered because there is no shepherd. They became meat for all the wolves of the field. Yes, they became meat for every one of you wolves. Iran, Russia, France, Germany, Italy, Great Britain, etc. You are the wolves. My sheep wandered throughout all the mountains upon every high hill. Yes, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and nobody searched them out. Nobody. Nobody cared. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Jehovah. Now he's swearing by his own name. As I live, saith Jehovah Elohim, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search out for my flock, but the shepherds fed themselves and fed not my flock. Therefore, O you shepherds, hear the word of Jehovah Elohim. Thus saith Jehovah Elohim, behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand. And I will cause them to cease from feeding the flock, neither shall the shepherds feed themselves any more, for I will deliver my flock from their mouth, and they shall not be meat for them. For thus saith Jehovah Elohim, behold, I, even I, will search out my sheep and seek them out as a shepherd seeks out his flock. When? The day of Jehovah's wrath. In the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep, and I will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered. When? In the day of darkness. And that cloudy and dark day, we know what day that is. That's the day of Jehovah's wrath upon the Gentiles. And I will bring them out from the Gentiles and gather them from all the countries around the world, and will bring them to their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel by the rivers and in all inhabited places of the country. And I will feed them in good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be, and they shall lie down in a good fold and a fat pasture, and they shall feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, I will cause them to lie down, saith Jehovah Elohim, and I will seek that which was lost. That means all crypto Israel. He's going to seek them all out. Even the ones that the rabbis in Israel have rejected. Jehovah Elohim is going to seek them all out. He's going to send the angels to find every one of them and bring again that which was driven away. I will bind up that which was broken. I will strengthen that which was sick, but I will destroy the fat and the strong, and I will feed them with judgment. I hope you world leaders out there are listening to this, because you are going to get judgment. The exploitation of the Jews is over. The exploitation of Israel is over. You getting yourselves rich at the expense of Israel is over. And we have Christians today claiming that the coming covenant of peace is a false peace. That's what Christians today are saying. Let's go down to verse 25. And I will make with them a covenant of peace. And I will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land. Yeah, you know, the 350-pound gorillas banging on the doors of Israel, trying to break in their house. And Israel has no choice but to shoot them. And they shall dwell safely even in the wilderness, and be able to sleep in the woods without being afraid. And I will make them and the places round about my hill, that's Zion, that's Jerusalem, a blessing. And the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am Jehovah, when I have broken the bands of their yoke. And delivered out of the hand of those who serve themselves on Israel. And they shall no more be a prey to the heathen, to the Goyim, to the Europeans, to the Russians, to the Chinese, to the Iranians, to the Arabs. Neither shall the beasts of the field, beasts of the land devour them, but they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown. Who is that plant? The Messiah. And they shall no more be consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen anymore. Thus they shall know that I am Jehovah, their Elohim, am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel, are my people, says Jehovah Elohim. You are my flock, the flock of my pasture are men, and I am your Elohim, saith Jehovah Elohim. That's right. The exploitation of Israel is over. And may all those who negotiated, who participated in the joint comprehensive plan of action, face judgment for exploiting Israel. That's exactly what the joint comprehensive plan of action was, the exploitation of Israel. It's over.